Hello, welcome to Arcadia. This is the D&D tutorial. So far, I approached the fundamentals of the game, the most basic things you need to start playing right away. But this video will be about more advanced topics. It will be about detailing what are elves in D&D. Now, if you're a new player just starting out, what awaits you in this video is just some lore and basic information on what elves are in D&D and what makes them unique and different from other races. Bear in mind that in your DM's world, elves may be different, which is completely fine. The elves from Lord of the Rings are radically different from the ones in Dragon Prince, and they're all still elves. Just consider this a short introduction to what is the basic idea of elves in 5th edition, specifically the Forgotten Realms setting, and some cool ideas / inspiration for you to create your own elf characters. However, if you're an experienced player or even a DM, this video can be useful to you not only as a summary of elven lore you may not know yet, but also as an outline of what makes elves elves and how you can take your roleplay of them to the next level by portraying these almost alien, time-insensitive, perpetually reincarnating exiled souls in permanent nostalgia. Let's roll. Let me start with a disclaimer. Every time I use the word ancestry in this video, you can translate it as race. I'm borrowing the term from Matt Colville. I just prefer it since not only the word race is negatively charged, it is also blatantly inaccurate since what D&D calls races are actually, biologically speaking, species. And those are two very different things. Let's follow that with another disclaimer, a more controversial one. I firmly believe that D&D ancestries should be different from each other, not only mechanically but also psychologically. It makes no sense to me that different species with different lifespans, origins, family structures, and sometimes even voices in your head tempting you to commit murder could all have the same distribution of personalities. Not only does that seem absolutely unrealistic, I believe it robs the game of the fun of role-playing an actually different life form. After all, if I wanted to roleplay a human, why would I be making an elf instead of an actual human? To have pointy ears? Surgery can take care of that. So bear in mind that when I share these role-playing tips for elves, that's where I'm coming from. It doesn't mean that I believe that all elves are the same, or that your elf can't be the exception to the rule, or that elves in every single world of every single DM need all to adhere to these concepts. I just think that the traits that all elves share, according to the lore, make them different, special, if you will, and more fun to play as. Anyway, my opinion on the differences between ancestries is a rant for another day. Look for it in the eye up there or down below in the Underdark when it comes out. For now, let's talk about elves. What makes them different? What roleplay opportunities they provide, and how can we roleplay one of these forest-dwelling aliens better? The player's handbook doesn't provide us with much to work with. It basically says that they are pointy-eared creatures quite similar to humans but slender, graceful, and lacking any facial hair, that tend to be living in villages hidden deep in the forests. They are patrons of the fine arts and value everything beautiful and ephemeral. The most valuable piece of information we get, though, is about their lifespan, which is one of their most determining features. They live over 700 years. It's almost impossible for us humans to imagine such a long life. But I think D&D's take on it can be quite precise when they say that this makes them more amused at certain things than they are excited and more curious than greedy. This long lifespan should be one of our main considerations when trying to develop an elf's personality. Imagine the things they would have seen over the course of a lifetime. To put things in perspective, if an elf was nearing the end of their life on Earth, when they were a child, half of Africa was still absent from most world maps, let alone the Americas. They would have seen the first Portuguese caravels sailing off to discover the world by sea, Da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa, Copernicus stating that the Earth was actually the one orbiting the Sun, Hooke discovering that we are all made of cells. They would have been there when the dodo went extinct, when the independence of the United States was proclaimed, when the first railways were being laid, when the man was landing on the moon. Think about what that would do to you. They could have accompanied one single family across 40 generations. 40 generations! That certainly puts time in perspective. You become more detached. This isn't the nicest thing to say, but the truth is that an elf would regard a human more like a dog, creatures that they care about, but that they know will die in the human equivalent of 9 years in their life. And while a human can forge close friendships in a couple of years, it would take decades for an elf to do the same. This actually affects how elves deal with conflict, as it's made clear in the book. Elves are more likely to wait out any armed conflicts than engage in violence. This makes sense, right? First, elves would be more risk-averse than humans, because while humans risk 80 years worth of life, elves would be putting centuries on the line. Much better sitting things out. But also, since the humans have less time to do anything, elves have the strategic advantage to endure stuff like sieges and simply wait out that the invaders get tired and leave. A 5-year siege for a human would feel like it would last only half a year for an elf. But if we apply the same principles for individual personalities, what conclusions could we take? Maybe elves could also tend to wait out any arguments, simply tiring out the other person involved, just waiting for them to calm down, forget the issue, and resume normal pleasantries. This adds up to the cold, unfazed stereotype that we are used to see. Maybe this could be the reason. Maybe it's standard behavior for elves to remove themselves from unpleasant situations rather than engaging with them and risking injury, physical, psychological, or social. However, this is only a very small part of what constitutes elves, and by far the most revealing piece of information about them come from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. According to that book, the most defining characteristics of elves are their cycle of reincarnation and their trance. It all started with the creation of elves. Corellon, considered the original elf deity and father of all elves, was a divine entity of grace, freedom, and chaotic mutability, who constantly changed forms. Corellon would go from a humanoid creature to a graceful deer to a warm summer breeze to a bolt of lightning and so on. This mercurial shape and personality enraged Grumsh, god of the orcs, who made Corellon bleed during a conflict. From Corellon's blood, the first elves rose. The primal elves shared Corellon's flamboyant shape-shifting tendencies, and recognizing them as their children, the god brought them to a plane which would later become the mythical elven paradise of Arvandor, enjoying each other's company in freedom eternal. Some of them were even given names and raised to the status of godhood by Corellon. One of those promoted gods was Lolth, who would later become the Spider Queen goddess of the Dark Elves and Demon Lord of the Abyss. She argued that the mutability and unparalleled freedom of the elves was preventing them from achieving greatness. If only they relinquished a little bit of their liberty and assumed static forms like the gods of other pantheons, greatness would be within their reach as well. Her enticing words convinced the primal elves to abandon Corellon's perpetual shapeshifting and fix their form in what resembles today's elves. Now, Corellon saw this as a betrayal, even more so when Lolth attempted to murder them, although she failed. Grieving, Corellon exiled every primal elf except the ones raised to godhood onto the material plane, blaming them for enabling Lolth's malice by following her words and abandoning their freedom. From that moment forward, no elf would ever truly enjoy Corellon's company again. When an elf dies, instead of their soul departing to some of the other outer planes like humans to enjoy eternity, they are instead returned to Arvandor, where they are received by one of the lower elven gods, the Seldarin, to enjoy some solace and refuge in their home place, to reflect on their life and to contemplate the grief they caused to Corellon, before being returned to the world for another lifetime. There's this amazing piece in the book telling us the reason why elves, despite being so long-lived, don't have a lot of babies and are the dominant race. And it totally makes sense. You see, for every elf, birthing a child into the world is a moment of joy, but also sadness, because the parents are aware that they are plucking a soul from Arvandor, depriving that soul of its time there. They are also aware that the soul they are bringing back to the material plane can be from an elf that hasn't been alive for centuries, or it can be from someone who they knew who died just a few weeks ago. And it's impossible to know. It's a delicate balance that elves experience between the joy of having a child and the necessity of perpetuating the species and the melancholy of plucking a sibling soul from Arvandor. All of this is what I consider lore gold. It is just fascinating to explore the inner complexity of elven kind in this new light through roleplay. I mean, imagine what would be the life of a society aware that their true home lies in another place, where they are denied entrance until their time in the material world is over, and even then only for a short time. The elves are, in a way, immigrants in this strange new material plane of fixed forms and lack of grace. Over the course of their lives, they make this world their rightful home, but there's always something missing. This nostalgia, this longing for a place they only know from the visions during their trance, and that calls for their hearts. I mean, of course you can roleplay your elf in any way you want, but I can't help feeling so excited at the possibility of exploring these rich and complex beings in a way that I never could being a human. This background of the elven ancestry is deeply intertwined with their ability to trance. Because elves don't sleep, they are incapable of it actually. When they need to rest, they enter in a state of meditation, where they immerse themselves in memories their soul has experienced before. Even memories not of this life. Because the elf's soul keep reincarnating, during trance they can summon memories from many different lives, which usually depends on the age of the elf. During childhood, young elves dream of memories from their immortal soul, the time spent in Arvandor before Corellon banished them to the material plane. The first time they experience a memory not from Arvandor, but from their current life marks the beginning of puberty, which lasts until the elf can no longer remember memories from Arvandor, a sad and melancholic moment in every elf's life called the drawing of the veil. During adult life, elves tend to be more open to the world, to travel, to gather knowledge, and to collect memories. During this time, they gain mastery over their trance, learning how to draw forth specific memories. This allows them to literally relive any experience they accumulated during their current life. This ability is also related with the reason why elves don't give much value to material goods. They don't get as attached as humans to physical properties such as family heirlooms or treasure, because even a sword will rust and crumble, and even gems will tarnish before the elf life ends, let alone more ephemeral materials. They instead value anything ephemeral, like a beautiful performance, a rainbow, the pattern of clouds in the sky, things that they can only experience once, but that they can keep in their memory and revisit forever. This also relates to how elves interact with other races. Shorter-lived races think that the reason why elves don't form close bonds with them very often is because they'd be sad for surviving them. And while that is part of the truth, they cannot but underestimate the impact it would have on an elf to form a close bond with a human, for example, see them die, and then reliving those feelings of grief every time they involuntarily intrude the elf's trance. I don't know what you think, but for me this gives me great ideas for character arcs. Kinda like what happened between Killith and Vax in Critical Role's original campaign. Think about this peculiarity when you think about the way your elf engages with other members of the party. Use it to mold their personality and their relationships. And if you feel like it, plan a revelation moment ahead for your character arc, when your character finally confides in their companions how afraid they are regarding this, about outliving them. Because anyone can play RPGs to kill monsters and ride a railroad. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I've done it. But exploring these deep and personal issues to break your character's heart open and then living through their growth, I think that's where RPGs really come alive. It should also be said that when elves enter the final stage of their lives, around the 3rd or 4th century, they experience the Remembrance, a time when they become able not only to relive the memories of their current life, but also from the previous lives of their soul. When this happens, the elves tend to seclude themselves, to return to their home villages, to be surrounded by their own, and to revisit all the memories they accumulated, while trying to separate them from the new ones from previous lives. Don't know about you, but this gives me some serious Avatar vibes. Just think about the character concepts you could make with this. The way I see it, choosing elf as an ancestry doesn't necessarily limit the freedom of characters you can make with all this lore behind. I think that all this background can serve simply as a way to inform your decisions when building the character, either as a tool to add more layers of depth to your concept, or, if your idea totally diverges from the standard elf, to encourage you to think, why is your elf different? What happened in their life to change them that much? This is a common technique for writers and storytellers that you will hear me talk about many more times. Constant interrogation. Constantly ask why, and then why, and if that's true, then why. Step by step, you will build your character into a more solid, robust, and real person. I hope this video gave you some cool ideas and that your elves become more interesting characters as a result. That's the goal. Tell me in the comments down below what was the most memorable elven character you ever played with. If you feel like I missed something important, let me know too. I know I didn't mention the drow, the dark elves, but that's because I think they are so distinct that they deserve a video all to themselves. Look for it in the eye up there or down below in the Underdark when it comes out. If you'd like to support this channel, please share this video with your friends playing elves. Maybe they'll like learning all these cool roleplay opportunities. And please be sure to check out my artwork in my social media pages. Thank you for watching. I'm the first Arcadian. Fear is the mind killer.